Marvel Rivals has a triple strategist problem and it's ruining the game. Hello everybody, my name is Abby. Welcome to the video. Today we're going to be doing an objective breakdown of what's wrong with triple strategist and how can we help alleviate the problem with this type of composition, because despite what people want to say, no, triple tank is not that good. Yeah, sure, triple DPS can kind of work sometimes if the 3 DPS are mechanically skilled. However, Triple Strategist is a comp that kind of covers everything that some people argue doesn't necessarily need the highest mechanical skill to execute, and it can be frustrating across all ranks where it's being played at the highest levels of play or all the way down in the lowest of the elos. Now with that being said, what is the fundamental problem with Triple Strategist? Well, there's a handful of things. Number one, yes, Triple Strategist does have a strong neutral game where depending on which Triple Strategist composition you are running, it can be very strong to play against. However, you can to some degree deal with the neutral of triple strategist depending on different circumstances. However, the problem gets much worse if the triple strategist composition is able to drag out the game into a scenario where now they can one by one do an ult cycle where you just cannot find a window to kill them. This actually circles back around into Marvel Rivals' biggest problem, which is that ultimates in this game come up way too fast. So my proposed solution is not just for the support role or the strategist role itself, but it's actually towards the entire game. Now, me personally, I'm one of the few people, I don't mind the breakpoints on the healing numbers and the way the damage number works in this game. I'm actually not for the idea that no, we need to kind of slow the game down from that perspective. Instead, I think the problem sometimes with Marvel Rivals is that it's way too ult sloppy, and that doesn't allow the game from a neutral perspective to shine. In my opinion, I actually think Rivals has the better neutral gameplay because of how much agency characters can have, but it's completely bundled under this ult slop fest that the game turns into after the first 1.5 team fight that the game has to offer to you, where it's a little bit about your mechanical skill and outplaying the opponent, and then after that it literally turns into who can press the right Q button at the right time. And that's where the problem kind of lies. It's actually a lot more in the ult charge region than people want to say. This doesn't just apply to the support role, it applies to tank and DPS as well. So how would I solve not only the triple strategist problem, but also the pacing problem that Marvel Rivals has when it comes to how team fights are flowing and how sloppy they can feel when the game is actually really beautiful underneath all of that, right? So first things first, I think this is the easiest thing to do. I don't want to directly nerf triple strategist as a composition. I think it can be unique sometimes when you want to play for it from a neutral value perspective. I do think we need to tone down how the ult cycling works, and this problem isn't just there for strategists, it can also sometimes be there for triple DPS, where it can feel overwhelming to deal with a good triple DPS comp as well. Regardless, compositions aside, the best way to deal with this problem in the game without guttering or changing up things way too much, no, I don't want role queue. I think this game is actually done really well in the open queue format. The number one thing this game needs is a 30 to 40% ultimate charge increase in the game, and that's it. After that, we can look at the neutral gameplay balance at another time or in between, but the most important thing is to slow down how fast ultimates come up in the game. Now, the thing is that this indirectly enforces the idea of playing 2 DPS, 2 tanks, and 2 supports, right? Now, maybe triple DPS and triple support can get away from a neutral value without putting too much emphasis on the ultimate, but this is going to be the biggest indirect nerf or even a direct nerf to the triple strategist composition, because triple strategists will not be able to stabilize the comp itself during different team fights, because supports will be cannibalizing each other because of the ult charge that they are sharing by the healing values that they're trying to quickly build their ultimates. Now, what I mean by that is when you have 3 people all competing for one stat, which is the healing that they're applying onto a target, if the ults have been increased dramatically by like 40%, I would say take the risk and do it for like a season or 2 and see how it goes. I think it's actually going to be really beneficial for the game. If the ult charge goes up by like 40%, the triple support as a comp cannot work anymore, just because it's going to be much harder for all the supports in that lobby to build up their ultimate charge and also cycle between their ultimates, and they'll be punished for using the ultimates way worse as well, implying that they, let's say in a King of the Hill map, actually save up those ultimates and try to cycle through. Indirectly, what that's going to do is actually enforce that third support player to go and play damage or tank and better fill out a different niche for the team rather than stay there and try to force the triple support. Now, how does that still maintain triple support? Well, that then leaves you with a scenario where you can still play triple support, but you play it for a different niche that isn't exactly the ult cycling and keeping everything everybody alive for a ridiculous amount of time, well, that's still going to be the case. But you can play triple support from a perspective of trying to utilize the utility a lot more and the different types of strengths of the characters in the triple support composition. For example, if you are playing the triple strategist, let's say we have a team of Gambit, Invis, and Ultron, well then perhaps instead of relying on just keeping everybody alive permanently, you're going to want to play this like hyper aggressive pace with Invis, Gambit, and Ultron, where you want to use the utility to, like, let's say Ultron gives 2 drones to 2 flankers, then he takes an off angle and starts applying pressure onto the backline with his flankers. Gambit looks for an anti-nade, Invis looks for like a pull from an off angle as well, and that's where the game can really open up. So it's still a triple strategist, but it's not triple strategist from the perspective that you're sitting in the backline just looking in a straight line, holding left click, and then getting massive value, right? So that's why I say that I genuinely believe Rivals has a really beautiful neutral game that's hidden underneath all the sustain fest the game has. Now, of course, naturally the game does have a sustain problem, but I think for now it's okay to offset the damage that's in the game across tank and DPS as well. That's a different thing. I'm not asking for the healing to be toned down. I'm specifically asking to adjust the pacing of the game when it comes to how ultimates work. I think this is the fundamental issue that Rivals needs to address. I actually like the sharpness in the game when it comes to the stronger healing or the stronger damage values, right? But if we have to tone it down a little bit, I'm not opposed to it either, as long as it's not too much, right? I don't want to go the Overwatch route. That shit is boring as hell. That game is literally budget Valorant now, but I don't want to talk about that here. Regardless, coming back to Rivals, the reason I want Rivals to maintain this identity here, where they allow the neutral to become a lot more important, is that's where individual player agency is going to matter a lot more. Your Mantis is not going to have to feel like she has to heal bot to win the game, right? She actually has to go on an off angle with, let's say, a hit scan or a projectile poke DPS and look for a kill with them in order to generate value. Her sleeps are going to matter a lot more. Same thing for Luna. I actually really enjoy playing Luna Snow, but I hate when I have to like ultra heal bot with Luna. I know the game's going to have moments where we're going to need to heal bot, and that's fine, but I still want to feel like that I can go on that off angle and make an aggressive play, and it's really satisfying landing all the dinks on a character's head with Luna and then deleting them from the game, and that being my value way more than sitting behind my team and clapping my cheeks, I mean my hands, and hoping that they survive a team fight that I wish I could do more for, right? So then I began to feel that way because of the rework that Jeff got. Jeff actually became strong for a while until Gambit came into the game, where Jeff was one of the better supports in the game because of the way that he could play with the aggressive Venom based dive comps, where Jeff could go on that off angle, help his flankers go in, and Venom would create the pressure and everything to take attention, while Jeff and the flankers would blow somebody up and then keep the pressure going from over there. It was really fun to play and watch at the highest levels of play, and it was also something that Jeff players, as they got better, were beginning to realize that, hey, you know, I can heal bot sometimes, but when there's an opportunity where the team fight's a little bit more open and my teams are in good positions, I can go on that off angle and do a little bit more. The character that loved this playstyle the most, who's been relegated now to a heal bot, has been Loki. Loki, when the game launched in Season 0 and Season 1, was in a much better state from how he could play the game, where he could quite literally go on flanks and do way more for his team that was a lot more interesting to where he is now. Now he's been relegated to being a heal bot, and I think a lot of the reasons for the gameplay for support or strategists being relegated to heal bot a lot more than doing anything else is for the sheer factor that my ultimate matters a lot, right? Because if I don't do this one job, the enemy tank ult or the enemy DPS ult will kill us all, and I will lose the game progressively over time. So in order to alleviate that frustration for support players and allow playmaking for them, which will also translate to more playmaking opportunities for the tank and DPS role, we have to tone down how the ult cycling in this game works. So while again this is where triple support excels the most, this is also a game-wide problem. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in depth later, but I've covered the basic points over here. I personally think that's what Marvel Rivals really needs to do, is slow the game's pace down, but not from the damage and healing value perspective. I don't mind where that is at the moment, right? Rather, I want the ultimate charge to slow down so people don't feel like, you know, what's going on in high elo right now, where like people are too scared of a Gambit ult, because right now high elo is literally whichever Gambit gets the ult first wins the team fight, right? So what people are doing is that they intentionally like trying not to throw around damage so that either side's Gambit doesn't get the ult. It's been very awkward to watch, and it's sad that a strategy like this has to be addressed or created over time to deal with a fundamental design issue in the game. I love Marvel Rivals. I actually think it's probably one of the best games out there. It's very accessible to people that are new and getting into the game, and it also has a good amount of depth that it doesn't get credit for, that I seriously think it should. However, there's no denying it that there's some design and even balanced decisions that is very questionable. So the first and foremost important thing that I think this game needs to address is nerf the ultimate charge in the game. make the neutral value matter a lot more, and people are going to enjoy this game a lot more. The game's going to be a lot more fun. Bad ultimates will be punished way more than not, and it's just going to allow for the game to feel way better to play. Again, I don't want to promote the competition here to some degree, but if you go and play Overwatch, this is the first thing that people that are new to the genre, when they go from playing Rivals and then they go and join Overwatch, the first thing they say is that, oh my god, the slower pace of the ultimate charge actually makes the game feel a lot better, because it feels like I have more time to breathe in between the different team fights and, for something that has happened. So I do think that's something Marvel Rivals should try to do. And the thing about Rivals is that it's a very experimentative dev team and balance team. So if it's something that we as a community don't end up liking, or it causes new problems or whatever, I can see the Marvel Rivals dev walking it back. But the first thing that I want to see from them is a strong commitment. It's a new year. Let's try a new year, new me approach with the balance and try to slow the game down from the alt economy perspective. And let's see how the game evolves over there. I actually think it's going to allow for a new niche of not only supports, but most importantly, dive tanks to thrive in the game, because they don't have to worry too much about the ridiculous, alt cycles. Because right now, the reason dive tanks and dive characters in general suffer the most is because of having to deal with the ridiculous, ultimates on supports that can come up over and over and over again, making the playmaking horrible. And that's why dive as a playstyle has been kind of horrible. Honestly, the only dive character that's kind of holding his own right now is Daredevil, but that's just because Daredevil is a little bit overtuned. But at the same time, it's like, well, I can't justify nerfing Daredevil right now with the way support is the way it is. So if Daredevil has to be nerfed, we do have to look at the support role as well, because outside of that, honestly, none of the other DPSs, maybe outside of Hawkeye one-shotting you in the head, can actually compete with the current state of the support. So I don't know, guys, what do you think? How would you address the triple support situation? I don't think we need some sort of a role passive to nerf the healing or something like that, but I do think that maybe nerfing the ultimate charge and, reducing the sloppiness of the ultimates and the sustain fest would be a great way to start and see how things go, and we can keep experimenting, because that's what I really like about Marvel Rivals as a game. It's very experimentative and every season feels fresh, but there is this one lingering problem with triple support that really holds the game back. So why don't we try to make triple support more interesting from a utility and a playmaking perspective, rather than making it, something that's interesting from a, well, it's okay, I just keep everybody alive permanently, it doesn't matter what else I need to do, right? So that's just my opinion, everybody. I would love to hear your thoughts down below. Subscribe for more Rivals educational content and debates and rants and all that type of good stuff. With that being said, I will see you in the next one.